Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Yankee Cowboy Podcast. And today's topic is basically a recap show of the week 3 of the NFL. And I think we have a lot to discuss, starting off with the Thursday night game with the New England Patriots and the Jets, and ending with the Monday Night Football game between the Commanders and Cincinnati Bengals. I think across the board here, we're still seeing an onslaught of illegal formation penalties, some unpopular or just downright terrible calls when it comes to the officiating, and then just mediocre quarterback play. And so by seeing all that, we have a lot to get into. And let's start off with the Thursday night game with the New England Patriots and the New York Jets. And I will tell you, as a New England Patriot fan, that game was downright just embarrassing. And Aaron Rodgers just basically beat the living daylights out of the New England Patriots. It wasn't just Aaron Rodgers, though. It was the defense of the New York Jets. And the offensive line play for the New England Patriots was just downright terrible. And I don't know how much money you can pay Dante Scarmecchia there, the old offensive line coach for the New England Patriots, to come out of retirement. But the New England Patriots might want to consider doing so, because right now I think someone's going to get murdered behind the offensive line here. That's the Thursday night game. That's what started the entire week. And to watch that 24-3 onslaught as a Patriots fan, it was pretty discouraging, because it wasn't just one player getting all the touches. It wasn't just one player getting all the recognition, or it wasn't just one defensive player doing something. It was an entire team effort, and it was very interesting to see. So, that being said, when you went to the Sunday games, there were some games out there that you really had to just kind of, I say overall, look at and go, what? And how the hell did that happen? And really, the first one that sticks out to a lot of fans is uniquely the Eagles and the Saints game, which surprisingly was a low-scoring game. Okay? The Saints have put up more than 40 points on the board for the first 2 weeks of the season, going against an Eagles team that's really been unsure of themselves on both sides of the ball, and kind of gotten some questionable results out of their decision-making. The other what the hell moment of the week was the Broncos and Buccaneers game, and then also the Cowboys and the Ravens. That was probably the biggest. And actually, I would say the second biggest was what the hell moment was the Cowboys and Ravens. The first we're going to talk about here in a bit. But the Buccaneers and Broncos game, I did not suspect that going to be that way. I suspected Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers to pretty much put on a clinic and win by 7 points. However, they did not do so. And that game was 26-7, which Bo Nix got his first victory as a Bronco, as a rookie, and really was a troubling, the Buccaneers probably have to go back to the drawing board and just kind of evaluate on what's best for them to do. And I think they will do that. And I mean that respectfully. They'll definitely do that and get back to where they need to be. The Chargers and the Steelers game as well was something unique, in that the Chargers didn't have an answer for the Steelers at all. And the fact is that Justin Herbert's been basically fighting a nagging ankle injury that he could have sat out, and I understand being competitive. It's a game check. I get all that. Ankles are kind of a weird injury, guys. I think everybody can agree to that. Ankles are not one of those injuries where, hey, I'm all healed. I know it's healed. You twist it a certain way after it's healed, and it's boom, back to square one again. So I think they could have probably sat Justin Herbert there, and they didn't. And it's very discouraging that they didn't. However, the scoreboard on that too was Justin Fields only 245 yards of throwing, which is a unique display of prowess. How they won that game, it was only 20-10. It wasn't a high-scoring offensive display of, greatness or anything, but they got the job done there, and they're 3-0 in that division. Okay, and that division right now looks like a dumpster fire in the AFC North. It looks like a complete dumpster fire. So for them to be in the top of the leaderboard in the standings of the AFC North is a pretty damn good thing. Now, the game I kind of really was surprised by the most in results wasn't so much the next two games I'm going to talk about. It's the Texans versus the Vikings. And the Texans versus the Vikings game, honestly, was a defensive display of just, okay, you're the second year in the league, CJ. All right, you're going to see Brian Flores bring the pressure, and not just bring the pressure, but bring really great coverage. Brian Flores, regardless of what people's belief systems were as a head coach of the Miami Dolphins, the man is a very gifted defensive coordinator. Very, very gifted because he knows certain things to get those players and what those players are capable of and put them in the right position to perform those particular things, those set of skills. He did it in New England, and I think his best display of his abilities was the defensive drive going against Seattle in that Super Bowl and against the LA Rams as well. I believe it was a defensive coordinator there as well. I could be wrong there, but that game was surprising. It was a 34-7. So really different. You had Justin Jefferson, Sam Darnold, who, okay, many people have written off. Okay, Sam Darnold got written off. Obviously, he got drafted by a very terrible organization by the New York Jets. Then went to be a backup in the Los Angeles Rams organization. And then he got signed after Kirk Cousins went to the Atlanta Falcons. So it's going to be very interesting to see that development. And I think we should all be looking forward to it as a football fan, really. Now, the games that I really genuinely want to get into here is something that, as a football fan, you just kind of go, what the hell, right? The first one being really is the game that really made me start going saying that is the Raiders and the Panthers. Okay. They're in Las Vegas. Okay. Andy Dalton's the quarterback after the benching of Bryce Young. And basically, make a long story short, the Panthers were up 21-7 at the half and didn't let that lead even come close. The Raiders scored 15 points in the fourth quarter, so they're trying to make a comeback. But if you look at it, the Panthers kicked just field goals in the second half and still did a very good job. They kicked about, I think, 5 field goals in the second half. Did a really good job. Adam Thielen went down with an injury after a touchdown catch, so that was a unique scenario. But I think what the real telltale sign is, the Raiders have a long way to go of who the heck their quarterback is, who their offensive, their personnel, and what their identity is on the offensive side of the ball. But Andy Dalton under center again is very eye-opening if you're a Carolina Panthers fan, because this guy is a veteran. He's a decorated veteran. If you look at his career, he's been around the block a long time. Andy Dalton's no, young buck either. He's been around the block and he understands and the troubling parts of the organizations and the troubling parts of the NFL. And for them to come out and win that game was surprising. Now, will they continue to do that? Who knows? Be very interested what the Panthers do going forward. But I think we can actually be happy to be a fan. And that's a good thing, right? So what I think we have to grow accustomed to here, and excuse me here, I'm looking at this, but the next game I really want to dive into here was the Cowboys and the Ravens game. Now, this game was a head scratcher from start to finish, really. And if you look at the stat line doesn't give it justice of how one-sided this game was. Because if you look at the total score at the end of the game in the fourth quarter, it looks like it was basically garbage time at that point, but it really wasn't. The Cowboys haven't scored an ounce of. They scored 6 points in the first half. It was 21-6. It was 21-6 at the half. The Ravens scored a touchdown in the third, and then basically from the late in the third quarter to pretty much the entire fourth quarter, it was a Cowboys just garbage time scenario, right? A lot of it wasn't garbage time, but really, if you pay attention to the game, it became garbage time. A lot of 3 and outs by the Ravens, stuff like that. Derrick Henry had 25 carries with 151 yards on the ground with 2 touchdowns. Just a remarkable game by Derrick Henry. And the Ravens got their first victory of the year. Now, I will say this openly. I live in Texas. I live in Dallas. The Cowboys are not my team. I wish nothing but the worst for them every single year because I'm tired of the fan base. The fan base, and they criticize, and the fans here criticize me for being a New England Patriot fan. These are the same crappy fans that would cheer for the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl over a Patriot fan. That's how crappy and one-sided and lopsided that they are as a fan base. They deserve this terrible, terrible team every year because they go, oh, we're going to the Super Bowl. They say the same shit every year, these Cowboy fans. Guess what? You can blame it on Jerry all you want. And sure, there's plenty of blame to go around. You signed Dak Prescott for $260 million. Guess what happened? Hasn't won a game at home. 2 straight home losses at one of the greatest stadiums there is in the country. And you still lose. Is it coaching? Is it the players? It's a mixture of both. It's called mediocrity. Complacency. That's what the Cowboys do every year. Now, do I give them credit for trying to make a comeback in that game? Sure. But did they even make a comeback? No, they didn't. They still lost. If you look at the scoreboard is not indicative of what was going on. The defense, Micah Parsons, and that defense got their asses handed to them for 3 straight quarters. They couldn't get off the field. The time of possession game was insane. And they deserved every ounce of humility of getting their asses kicked. Now, for example, when the Saints came marching in, which is, by the way, a great song for all the Saints fans, when they went to Dallas and beat them like they did, the offense wasn't that much different. It really wasn't. The difference is the Saints didn't slow themselves down, did not put up more points on the board. I don't see the Cowboys until a change in coaching happens there in Dallas, and really, and I mean this respectfully, Mike McCarthy's got to go because sorry, Mike, but yeah, it's not working. It's really not. Stephen Jones needs to go as a GM as well, and the Jones family needs to go as well, really respectfully. But they're not going to. But yeah, there's that ownership group. But those are the 2 games that I would say that are just what the hell moments of the week. The cool moments I would say is the Lions and the Cardinals, the Rams and the 49ers game was probably the game of the week, other than the Saints and the Eagles game for the early window. The late window was definitely the Rams and 49ers, and the Lions and the Cardinals game came down to the wire. Just the amount of back and forth and just a lot of difference of scoring and things like that happened. The Sunday night game I'll kind of get into here briefly is that uniquely, right? And I sincerely say this, that the lack of, before I get into this, I kind of want to talk about a topic that's really has been at kind of the forefront, has been this call for the cancellation of the cover 2 defense or the banning of the cover 2 defense. I don't think any defense is the reason why a particular game has been lopsided or lack of what do you like to call points, right? I don't think that's the reason why. What I do genuinely believe is the reason for is that there is a, like Tom Brady said at the end of last year, is that these quarterbacks have dummied it down and the offense is pretty predictable, really. Um, I guess unless you're Andy Reid. Andy Reid is still probably the most diabolical play designer, and he was always that way. I mean, Bruce Arians is the same thing. Some of these guys have unique minds to the game of football. The difference is, though, Andy Reid has a couple good things on his side here. He has remarkably one of the best quarterbacks in the league playing for him. And the hard thing about that is he also has a really good team structure built around it. So it's not like it's it's a challenge to get down with these things. It is legitimately, if you're a football fan, you enjoy watching the Chiefs because the Chiefs are just high octane most of the time and they just dial it up. The problem is with the Chiefs is that the fans of the NFL hate their guts because of all the pro Chiefs calls that they get. And it sounds very reminiscent to the New England Patriots hatred that happened after they won like 3 Super Bowls. So I, as a Patriots fan, I can appreciate the hatred going towards the Chiefs because it's rightfully and deservingly so. Some of these lack of offensive or defensive pass interference calls, it just the officiating has definitely made being a football fan challenging in the first 3 weeks. I don't think there's much to question on that. But I will say this, really. The Chiefs are a wagon. It's just a matter of they're gonna come against a challenging sidestep here, and that is the Buffalo Bills. Who in the AFC is going to challenge the Chiefs and make it a worthy opponent for the narrative down the stretch of the season, right? The Miami Dolphins were potentially going to be that way. No Tua Tagovailoa, obviously with concussion protocol. He's going to probably be out for at least 4 weeks. That season's gone, right? Buffalo Bills, potentially. Sure. However, the other team they're talking about as well in the past of being the AFC threat, and that is the Cincinnati Bengals. And the Bengals, if you go back, in a great segue into the Monday night games, the first Monday night game was a onslaught of the Buffalo Bills just putting on a clinic of ass whipping. And there was no question about who was whipping that ass. It was the Buffalo Bills against the sorry-ass clown show that is down there in Jacksonville. And, I'm sorry, but the Jaguars are going to be in the bottom of the barrel of the AFC South. And I'm sorry for the fans in there. NTN, he's going to put up yards. He's going to do some things. The key difference is the Buffalo Bills are just going to keep on putting up points. Josh Allen, 4 touchdowns, 23 for 30 for 263. Good run game. Just overall good game for the Buffalo Bills. And they start their season 3-0. And here's the thing. It's going to be the Buffalo Bills and the Jets for the AFC. And after watching the last game of the Monday night game, I genuinely have a concern for Cincinnati down the stretch here in the division. This game wasn't a game of lopsided offense or defense. Maybe you could say lopsided defense, but the Commanders literally stayed toe-to-toe with one of the most high-powered offenses in the NFL, which is Cincinnati. And if you look at the scoring pipeline, they both score a touchdown in the first. Commanders score 2 touchdowns. Commanders get a touchdown in the third, and they get a touchdown and a field goal in the fourth. So, seriously, the game was back and forth, and that's kind of where you want the games to kind of go. But the unique part about it is, I guess it's surprising as a football fan to see a team like the Commanders be successful in that manner, right? And I'm not trying to discount the Commanders as an organization because they've been in the gutter for a long time. The fans know where they're at. But if they can put on a good showing for the fans here, and I think genuinely, um, the Commanders can do that. Um, and I think that now will they finish first in the division? That's gonna be a tough one. That's a tough boat to row there. I think they'll finish probably third in the division, behind ahead of the Giants in the division for sure. Um, I just think the Cowboys are iffy down the stretch here. If they go on a losing streak here in the division, then yeah, the calls will get louder and louder for Mike McCarthy to get fired midseason. Uh, the Commanders with Jalen Daniels, it is definitely going to continue to rise. I think he's playing for a tough organization, man. Like I don't know how fans can understand this without kind of going through it themselves with their team. But every single year, you kind of have to walk in there with hope that they're going to do well, right? And the Commanders organization as a whole has an entire ownership change, right? That's a beginning. Then you have a GM change, which happens over tenure, over time. When you have unsuccessful past leadership, they bring in these new guys that kind of implement their thing. That may work for 3 to 4, or may not work for 3 to 4 years. But unfortunately, those guys are under contract, right? So before any changes can occur, they need to kind of get about 1 to 2 draft cycles under their belt before you start seeing some real positive change. And I see that with the Commanders. I see that with the Commies. And the thing is, I'm not seeing that with is the Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, since they drafted Joe Burrow and the court and the receiver there, it hasn't really been much of a development there. And they're also terrible in the month of September. It's kind of one of those weird, baffling phenomena for the Bengals. They're just terrible in the month of September every year, and it's kind of one of those strange things. Are they still going to be a threat down the stripe? Who knows? But they're 0-3 going into week 4. And the season only gets harder, right? So when you look at the things here, what the big takeaways of the week are, you see the storyline kind of progress with the Lions being the Cardinals, kind of staying with their true identity there, going back to what they're good for. The Chiefs will be the Chiefs. The AFC West is very much a dumpster fire outside the Chiefs. The AFC East has two key components there. And if the New England Patriots arguably can kind of right this ship a little bit on the offensive line side, they can probably make themselves, pretty competitive throughout the rest of the year. The NFC South is what's going to surprise a lot of folks, and that is the Buccaneers are going to be competitive. The Saints, if they stay the way they are, minus this 1 week here with the Philadelphia Eagles, they're going to be playoff bound, right? The Panthers are going to be the Panthers. They're going to still continue to be terrible. But the one division that really has my eyes open to what the football season's really going to become is the AFC North. There was a lot of talk going into this season with the Steelers with 2 quarterbacks on the roster, 2, I would say, veteran, one older veteran than the other veteran, but 2 veteran quarterbacks on the roster. They opened the season up with one on the IR or being injured, okay? And then you have a team like Cleveland that's not performing. They're arguably not performing. You have the Baltimore Ravens kind of come out to a sluggish start, which they did win this week in Dallas, but there's going to still be the narrative of we have to keep pushing, especially when you have Derrick Henry. Okay, Derrick Henry is going to draw that narrative, and I think it's important, genuinely, to keep talking about that. The distinction that I think a lot of people are going to come to include here is that the Browns are terrible, the Ravens are so-so, and then you have, really the other team in the AFC North. And it's a very difficult conversation because in the AFC North, the Cincinnati Bengals are in the dumpster. Rightfully so. They deserve to be there. Haven't won a game. But a lot of people don't suspect them to be there. So there's going to start being calls for people. So I think uniquely, we all kind of need to anticipate what's going to happen here going down the stretch. But what I will say this, the week 4 matchups that I'm the most interested in seeing, right? Very important, is obviously a Thursday night game with the Cowboys and the Giants. That's going to be important. It's going to be in MetLife. The Saints and the Falcons, we start to begin divisional play. The Colts and the Steelers start to play. You start seeing divisional playoff game, divisional rivalries start to come around. Vikings and Packers are playing. You just have a really good thing. The Patriots playing the 49ers is not something I'm looking forward to. The Bills and the Ravens on Sunday Night Football is something definitely I would look forward to. 2 games on Monday night again, which, I mean, I'm not sure if that mentality works. I would go back to only having 1 game, but, what do I know? But week 4 is going to be interesting. So that's my recap. I think big takeaway there is the Cowboys are still cowboying. Cowboys, they still suck. Patriots are still a dumpster fire. And it's going to be fun to watch the Saints and the Eagles and the 49ers do their thing. Appreciate you guys signing in and joining me. Feel free to join me and subscribe or download on any podcasting platform. Feel free to, just follow me on social media. We'll just talk about sports, man. That's the great thing about it. Hopefully going to come out with another episode sometime this week on the election and some NASCAR stuff as well. So hope everyone joins me. Feel free, like, subscribe, all the fun stuff. Have a good rest of your week, guys. See you at the end of week 4.